All right, let's jump right in. In this explainer, we are unpacking a truly revolutionary blueprint for influencing, training, and inspiring people. And honestly, the best part about this, we are doing it completely without those cheap, manipulative psychological tricks. Look, if you've ever felt like modern persuasion leans a bit too heavily on making people feel small just to sell them a quick fix, you are going to absolutely love this material. Today, we're figuring out what it actually takes to build unyielding, long-term resilience in the people you lead.
So, think of this explainer as your operational playbook. Here is the game plan. First, we'll cover the inadequacy anchor. Second, the 4 pillars of persuasion. Third, the sovereign leadership protocol. And finally, becoming an apex node.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the inadequacy anchor, and what is fundamentally broken with modern persuasion.
So, the inadequacy anchor. What is it? Well, it's a highly manipulative tactic, and the crazy thing is, it's literally everywhere once you know what to look for. It works by generating this impulse compliance. It basically whispers to people that the world is too dangerous, the system is way too complex, and most importantly, that they are just too fragile to survive on their own. The underlying message is always, hey, you need our product, you need our credential, or you need our permission just to be whole. And you can see the stark contrast here between these two approaches. Now, don't get me wrong, the inadequacy anchor works incredibly well if all you want is short-term impulse compliance. But the cost? It's astronomical. It leaves people psychologically bankrupt. They just turn into these transactional mercenaries waiting around for someone to rescue them. Sovereign persuasion, though, that is a totally different beast. It demands long-term structural resilience. It demands active ownership. When you're trying to genuinely sell someone on a path, you want them grabbing the reins, not cowering in the back seat.
Let's move right into Section 2, the 4 pillars of persuasion, which is all about building out that psychological pipeline.
The absolute foundational step here is shifting someone's locus of control. You know, in behavioral psychology, if someone has an external locus of control, they basically think life just happens to them. To lead effectively, you've got to strip away that victim malware. It's totally crucial. You have to prove to them, whether it's your business partner, your employee, or even your kid, that they actually hold the wheel. You show them that no matter how crazy the outside world gets, it's their choices, their consistency, and their execution velocity that actually dictate their results.
Building right off that, we hit Pillar 2, worthiness authorization. You literally have to make them believe they deserve to reach the peak. Because think about it, so many people fold when the pressure hits, right? And they do it because deep down they have this unexamined belief that self-mastery or elite health or true freedom belongs to someone else, like some genetic or financial elite. As a leader, your job is to completely dismantle that illusion. You have to prove to their prefrontal cortex that they are literally hardwired for excellence. Provided, of course, they actually pay the real tax of the hard work to get there.
Then there's Pillar 3, epistemological trust. Big words, I know, but it just means they need to have immense, unshakable faith in the process itself. Look, you cannot ask a human being to endure extreme friction unless you give them a rock-solid logical framework that guarantees a return on their investment. You've got to break down the underlying mechanisms with scientific clarity. Training someone in the gym? Explain the biology of hormesis. Building a business? Break down compounding asset interest. When they finally understand the exact physics of the process, all that anxiety just dissolves. They trust the track.
And that brings us to Pillar 4, the ultimate anchor, the horizon extension. True empowerment means you look the person dead in the eyes and completely refuse to offer them some cheap, immediate shortcut. No way. You demand a commitment to delayed gratification. You tell them straight up, look, this terrain is going to be grueling. You're going to log unglamorous hours in total darkness, and you won't feel the reward right away. But the structural adaptation you get on the other side, it will be unkillable. When you do that, you're respecting their intelligence. You're treating them like a sovereign warrior, not some fragile consumer.
So, with that pipeline installed, I want to throw a really provocative question your way. Next time someone in your network comes to you with a problem, are you swooping in to save the day like a superhero? Or are you operating as a systems architect, handing them the tools to save themselves?
That takes us perfectly into Section 3, the sovereign leadership protocol. Let's talk about execution in the real world.
This protocol breaks down into 3 highly actionable steps to make sure every single interaction you have is empowering, not just enabling. Step 1, you have got to completely evict the savior complex. Seriously, just kick it out. When a client or a team member brings you a crisis, do not step into that room acting like the flawless superhero who's going to magically fix everything. Sure, it feels amazing for your ego, but it totally starves their development.
Instead, be the systems architect. Point them straight to the raw data, hand them the first principles tools, and tell them, you have the hardware and the intellect to resolve this. Go execute the code and show me your metrics tomorrow.
Now, step 2. This requires you to validate their scar tissue, but absolutely never their excuse. If someone tries to retreat into a safe space or starts throwing out excuses to justify being complacent, do not coddle them. Coddling is just soft disempowerment. It basically says, yeah, I agree, you're too fragile to handle this. Don't do it. Instead, call them up to their highest identity profile. Remind them of the impossible things they've already survived in their past. Tell them you know exactly the caliber of their nervous system, that they deserve the peak, and they just need to go swallow the friction.
And step 3 is running what the text brilliantly calls the father-son agency induction. And hey, you can use this for anyone you mentor, even your own kids. The idea is, when you share your own real-world setbacks, the punchline should never be about how awesome you are. It's not about you being a god. It needs to center entirely on the accessibility of the blueprint. You tell them, hey, I faced absolute chaos, I refused to fold, I ran the protocol, and I won. The core message is this: if my code can do it, your code can do it better. You are the absolute captain of your trajectory.
Finally, we've made it to section 4, becoming an Apex node and assuming that fully transformed identity. When you actually run this code flawlessly, it completely transforms your presence. You stop being just a mere salesman desperately chasing low-stakes compliance or begging for external validation. You evolve. You become an absolute Apex node of empowerment within your circle.
As this kind of sovereign leader, you literally lift the entire frequency of your network. Because you are constantly demanding active ownership and flat-out rejecting the coddling of weakness, you force everyone in your orbit to wake up to a massive truth. You force them to realize that their strength, their freedom, and their ultimate victory, it was always sitting right there in their own hands. You're not giving them power. You are demanding they finally recognize the power they already have.
So here is the ultimate takeaway for this explainer, and it's a challenge for your own leadership trajectory. The very next time you need to influence, train, or lead someone, you've got a real choice to make. Are you going to take the easy way out, rely on the inadequacy anchor, and settle for that fragile short-term compliance? Or are you ready to actually do the hard work, execute this code, build unkillable resilience in the people around you, and become a true apex node of empowerment? The blueprint is right here. The choice is yours.